Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Road to GT Academy. As you can see, this is on mental preparation. This was a request from somebody on YouTube called The Ashu, which is all going to be about a sort of race prep, mental preparation for that. But before we go into the video, I just want to sort of say that before you go to a race, you should always practice. Because obviously you can learn a lot of things in practicing. You can learn brake markers, how a car reacts. Obviously this is only if you have the opportunity to. If you just turn up to an event, or the event's announced literally, or the car is announced literally just before your race, you can't do this. But if you can, practice your brake markers, practice your turn-ins, practice your acceleration points, learn the car and learn the tracks and things like that. Obviously if you're struggling to learn a track, I'll look at my track guides. Just a little plug there for those, because I'm hoping they're really useful to people. They seem to be useful. They're quick videos just to explain racing lines and any advantages you can gain. Right, so in this video I have a Ferrari race. So what we're going to do is look at the cars first. So as you can see, as it's a Ferrari race, we've got 458, we've got a 599, and we've got another 458, and then we've got California, and then the cars continue. So the first thing you've got to really understand is to know your opponent, which in this situation is very hard, because obviously there's different cars, they're going to have different setups, and they're going to have different strengths and weaknesses. As you can see at the back, we've got more cars, we've got an Enzo and an F40. So initially I'm going to have to assess each car individually as I get behind them or as they approach me. But before I do all of that, I have to assess this first corner. Now, first corner, first lap on any race is completely different to any other lap you will ever do on a track in a race. So the first point is just to get through that safely, you know, make sure. So obviously I back off here, I'm assessing the situation, I'm adjusting my braking accordingly, making sure I stay with the top guys and don't lose any positions. Which I do, then at this point I can then look at my first car I want to overtake, which is Just and Go in a 458. Now in this situation I've got to look at Just and Go in his 458 and say, right, okay, how is his car set up differently to mine? You know, how can I get past him? Where are his weaknesses and where are my strengths? So I'm going to start looking at this and think, right, okay, how can I do this? So as I get to each corner, I'm going to look at what he's doing and what I'm doing. And as you saw there, I gained time. You know, I'm looking at this, I'm seeing Just and Go, I'm gaining time on acceleration. Again, I'm gaining a lot of time on acceleration. So this says to me, on exits, I have far more grip to get the power down earlier to accelerate through. So what does that mean? Well, essentially at this point, I know Jut's got the inside for this corner, but I know there's a straight afterwards. Perfect opportunity to overtake. So I back off a bit, let him take the corner, and then get a really good exit, and it allows me to overtake Just and Go. And it's that sort of thing with sort of as you race, you have to think about, because you should already know brake markers and things like that, or have a general idea of the track. You can then forget about that because you're sort of subconsciously going to do that. You can look at each opponent and look at how you're going to get past them, or if somebody's catching you, how are you going to defend them? So there Just and Go makes a slight mistake. He goes to the outside, he expects me to move, but I just stay where I am, and he slightly touches my back, which gives me the bump speed that he had, and then it allows me to keep my position. So in that situation I can now look ahead and look at trying to catch Coffee Bean, who was in the 599, so a completely different car. So at this point I'm sort of looking at times. Am I gaining? Am I losing time? Where am I losing time? Where am I gaining time? Monza is sort of a good example of this, because we have fast sections where it's just pure acceleration, and then we have this complex section which is more turning and sort of braking, and I can look at, am I gaining here or am I gaining there? You know, I can then adjust my style. I can already start to think about how can I overtake if I can get there in time. And it's this sort of thing then I now have to assess again a new opponent, because I'm doing everything else subconsciously. I know my brake markers, I know my acceleration points. I know my turnings, I know how the car's going to react. I can do that without really thinking now, and I can just look at how to get past Coffee Bean. So that practice beforehand, if you can do it, helps you a lot with your preparation, sort of your race prep, your mental prep, because you're not thinking about something, you can think about other things. Gives you more thinking time. So as you can see, I'm gaining on Coffee Bean quite a lot here, and I noticed there that was the first point I noticed. He really struggled with turning with that car. So that's the first thing that ticks. Right, okay, he's struggling with turning, he's going to have to brake a lot more. As you can see on the left in a second, he absolutely piles on some speed and just flies ahead. And that wasn't slipstream either, because he stayed to the left, so I know his car is really quick. Can't take him on a straight, for example. So this is where I start building up a picture. Okay, he's got not very good turning, but he's got absolutely stunning pace in acceleration. I now have to look at how I can use that to get past Coffee Bean. So I'm going to, at this lap, because I have a few more laps left, I can just build up a picture of where I want to overtake. So once again, I'm sort of thinking about how my opponent's working, how can I prepare for an overtake, how can I do this overtake. So I realise this complex section is a really good point to get really close to Coffee Bean. Obviously I'm not too close at the moment, so I just leave it for now. And once again, we're slowly catching Coffee Bean. I realise he's going to accelerate. I'm just getting out of the way just so I can not get right behind him, so I can judge my braking better for the next. And then we're coming back up to where we first caught Coffee Bean. So there, in that lap, we can build a picture. We know he's braking, he has to brake a lot more. He's got a lot more speed though, but he struggles with turning. And this is where we first sort of saw this, you know, the parabolica. We sort of went on the inside, we realised this situation. So once again, I can look at that. I realise he's braking. He's also braking slightly later by the looks of that. Once again, he's left the gap open. I'm going to accelerate, but he's actually carried more speed this time. Notice he hasn't gone further back. So now, as he's along straight, I want to get behind him as early as possible, because I can now build up this picture of he's going to have to brake really early for this chicane. I can outbrake that, and as you can see, I do that. I realise I'm going to make the corner very easily, and I've got the inside, and then he has to fall in behind. But then I have to think about, how am I going to defend this? There's another strong acceleration period. How can I defend this? So once again, I'm thinking about this. I'm not really thinking about the car where I'm braking, because I'm just doing that subconsciously at this point, because I understand the car and where I need to brake. Once again, he's coming behind, but he has to brake earlier. He hasn't got enough speed, and now we're coming to this complex section where I'm a lot stronger, and I can build up that gap. So I'll just let this play through, and I'll just talk about a few other things you can help prepare yourself with a race. Now obviously, depending on the race, it depends on what you do to prepare. Like a fun race, you're not going to be serious, you're not going to be practicing to, you know, get the win. A fun race is just a fun race, you just turn up to have a laugh, enjoy it, and things like that. But like with a more serious race, a competition race where something's on the line, so like GT Academy, it's something you do want to prepare for. Now, I was conscious at the first GT National Final I went to, I didn't prepare, but that was because my real life had more of an effect than GT Academy, because I had a dissertation and 2 reports due in 2 days before the national finals. So that didn't help me a lot, especially when I didn't have a lot of wheel prep. And in that situation, you just got to make the best, you know, best out of a bad situation, really. But other, like, I did gridsters as well, and that they told you some of the combos, but on the day the combos sort of changed, and then it ended up being different things for, you know, different scenarios, and so you just have to sort of, you know, go on the day, just react. But other things you can prepare for with outside situations, like in my house, I always tell people when I'm going to race so that they don't barge in during the race, and that helps a lot because that means I can concentrate entirely on the screen. Now obviously if you're at a live competition you can't really do that because you've got people watching you. You might have a camera in your face, You might be on a live stage, like at Gridsters. I was on a live stage, so you've got a lot of people watching you, and in that situation, you then have to sort of just focus on the screen. Now I sort of think of this as tunnel vision. Now tunnel vision is bad, you don't want that in any situation really, but in a competition where you just want to focus on the screen, it sort of helps. So if you can focus on a center point on the screen and see everything and still do everything you need to do, it allows you to just focus on the screen and ignore everything else around you, and that's the sort of thing you want to do. You can also practice sort of with where I said for people not to come in. You can get friends and stuff to come in and sort of start talking to you, and that'll allow you to sort of try and concentrate on two things at once. And if you can still race in that situation, it's a good thing, because in that sense you're able to do two things at once. You're still concentrating on the race, you're doing it subconsciously as well, but you can also talk to that person, and that can develop, because then you're not really, if something's happening sort of at a competition live, you can then sort of react to that, and so if a camera's in your face, you can ignore that. If a judge puts up a flag in front of you, you can see that, you can acknowledge it, but you're still concentrating on the race. It's that sort of thing. It's that sort of preparation you can do mentally as well. But that to me is all you have to do. You can also look at making sure you've got enough to drink, you've had something to eat, if that helps, and just the stuff that helps you race. But as concentration goes, you just have to make sure that you get the best environment. So like for example actually as well, if I film or if I'm racing, I have to have the camera on my computer, because it goes through my computer. But in that sense that would put me off if I've got two screens, so I'd turn one off, well, my monitor off, and then I can just race as usual. So I hope that's of help. Obviously if you have any other questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them. Obviously mental preparation in the end is just, it can be individual. So for me, obviously I just like to concentrate on, I can concentrate on one screen. I've been in tournaments where you've got people watching. I'm sort of used to that now. You've just got to sort of build yourself up, so even if it's a different game but you can get into a tournament, do it, because that can help in other aspects. But obviously if you're struggling at one different aspect, if you want to ask me how to do one specific area, I'll be happy to answer that. But that's it for this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Of course, as I've mentioned, any questions feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.